Oh, yeah.
Gentle people. How are you?
Mr. President? But I think it's his wife.
Do we know if he's coming?
I don't think he's coming. His wife has something.
Just chime in here a little bit, so I'll go ahead and do a quick introduction, see if they want, how much detail they want to have. Okay.
Well, it's the appointed hour. Good afternoon. I'll call this meeting of the Tarrant County Housing Finance Corporation to order. The first item of business is approval of the minutes from the June 28th, 2024 meeting. May I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and second for approval. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. The next item is to receive and file G42 MA disclosure statements on Renaissance Square 3 and Wildwood Branch. Mr. Dransfield, would you explain to us what these are?
I believe these are from Hilltop for their municipal advisory role, those two
Oh.
projects.
Yes. Yeah, it's just a requirement for us to basically state that we're your municipal advisor, Claire with Hilltop Securities, for these two projects. And so it's just an acknowledgement of our advisory role.
Okay.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
Motion and second to receive and file. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have an amendment to the Hilltop agreement,
Yes.
which, as I understand it, eliminates the monthly retainer.
That's correct, yes, yeah. We had spoken about this at the last meeting a couple of months ago, and this was a retainer that had been in place for maybe 15 plus
For
years.
years,
Yes, and so it was brought to our attention and we were happy to terminate that. And so as of June 30th, it is no longer in place, and that is what this amendment to our contract is for, to remove those fees.
Thank you for doing that.
Of course, absolutely.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second for approval of the amendment to the contract. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries unanimously. Now we have several resolutions concerning bond issuances to consider. Mr. Dransfield.
Mr. President, members of the board, you do have two bond authorizations today, or bond resolutions as well as an inducement. So the first one we'll talk about is for the Renaissance Square project. It's a bond authorization.
This means we're going to sell some bonds and make some money for this corporation. Go for it.
And that's true, actually. So this is a project that's going to be new construction. It's going to be the third phase of this Renaissance property. The property is located at 2757 Moresby Street, which is kind of, I think, east of 35 between Rosedale and Mitchell Drive. They're looking to do 100 units. They're asking you for, they've been induced for $25 million, and I think they're going to be in that same neighborhood when it comes time to issuing the bonds. Oftentimes, the bond amount will be a little bit less than what the allocation reservation is for them, but they'll forward that out. That's going to be a private placement transaction with Citibank. It's scheduled to be closed into next year. So the thought process will be we have to do a carry forward to take advantage of it. As you all recall, they got 180 days from get the reservation date to close the financing. And to move that into 2025, which is what their schedule is to do, we'll have to do a reservation carry forward request. And that's something that does not require board additional action. You actually, when you did the inducement resolution initially, you authorized that to take place. So this is really just a funding of the new construction. The City Bank will be involved as kind of the borrower, if you will, the lender. And so this is, you're right, there will be the ongoing fees come, so the corporation will receive at the closing fees as well as annual fees for these processes. These particular notes, and they're going to be styled as notes as opposed to bonds, but they're one and the same thing. Has its stated maturity date of August of 2058. So, as I say, this is the third phase of this phase at that location, and they're excited about being here. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Is this the same owner
Same.
of the
Yes.
previous two phases?
Of the other two.
Yes.
Well, I know just through experience, they've had issues with crime in the first couple of phases at Renaissance Square over there in East Fort Worth. I don't know if there's been exerted any control or if they've had to, I guess, rehabilitate some of the environment over there, but the reputation is not that great.
This is part of a mixed-use development. And to my knowledge, it is a very successful project. The commercial part of the development includes a Walmart store and several other highly successful commercial ventures. This is the third phase of multifamily housing in this complex. The occupancy rates of the first two phases are well above 90%. I don't know of a crime issue in this area that is out of the norm for this particular section of our community. In fact, the crime rate at Renaissance is probably not as high as the surrounding area.
Yeah, my question stemmed from, I guess it was a two-parter. The first one was if it was the same ownership. The second one is if there is, on any of these that we present, so let's take this one specifically out of the question. On any of these that we sponsor, are there any stipulations where they have to have added security or anything that's going to make the community at large safer? Because I have seen some of these, they'll build a building and then quickly flip it to another owner. Like these things happen quite often when you're dealing with affordable housing. And it's predatory folks that come in and take over. And we see it time and again. I just know that there has been crime in this area.
This is a nonprofit that builds to hold. Witness the fact that this is phase 3. And they have not sold any of their properties that are a part of this complex. They're in it for the long term. It is part of, what do they call that program out of Atlanta? James, do you know the program out of Atlanta that came out of Shirley Franklin's mayoral administration? It's
I don't think that we mentioned that before here.
It's a national program for affordable housing, and this is a very successful example of what that program produces. I can't remember the name because I'm old.
Well, and maybe in terms of the particulars that have to deal with security in these deals, I just know when we deal with, other nonprofit entities that are focused on producing and providing affordable housing, usually whether it's the local municipality or it's this body before consenting or approving tax credits or whatever we do, there is some consideration of what's going back into the development as far as safety and security. I know we've had those discussions in the past. I just didn't know if that tied into our consent of bond issuance, if we ever got involved at that level and said, well, if we're going to do this, then you need to make sure you're keeping the community safe.
Judge,
You're our counsel on this?
Yes, sir.
Correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
So if we did not approve this, they have the ability to go get this done somewhere else? Is that right? Or this is it?
No,
Forget the
they
bonds.
would have the ability to get volume allocation probably through the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs
Okay.
or some other issuer that have jurisdiction in that space.
Okay, can we make as a condition, and I don't know if it's before us today, can you make as a condition of its passage, I'm making stuff up, you must implement these 4 safety measures in your current units and adopt them for unit number 3? Whatever those are, you have to build a fence, you have to put more lighting in, you have to, could we make that a condition of approval?
You know, you always have the ability to put conditions on the projects that you want.
Okay.
So then it's a question of trying to figure out when the right timing for doing that is, certainly. If you're doing that at the front end so they can factor that into the cost, that's always helpful. I don't think your application system today addresses that, but that's not to say that you couldn't address that. For this particular project, if you want to say, look, the only way you're going to approve this is to go forward with these, whatever the criteria is you would suggest, then they've got to figure out whether that is something they can do with the structure that they have. with the
If you
participants.
don't approve it today, is there some timeline? So, like, in other words, do we have the ability to do this? I know we have the ability to have another meeting, but I'm asking is, do we have the ability to say, go get us some stats? Go tell us what's happening over there. Is there a problem? What's the problem? What are the 3 or 4 things you can do to fix the problem? And then bring back an agreement that we could vote on requiring them to do that for their other units and the current unit going forward. Is that something that can be done in 2 weeks?
You know, I don't know whether they can get that done in 2 weeks, certainly. But
Who's they?
But they, the property owners, the developers.
Well, I don't think they would be doing it. They're probably not going to go collect their own crime stats. I'm saying we would be doing it.
Well, if you're going to delay this, then just remember they have, that 180-day clock that they have is running. So it's.
When did it start?
Well, it expires at the end of, about the middle of February the 15th or something.
I think that's right, Bob. Jonathan Grants from Kelly Hart. I would make one comment. As Bob said, if y'all want to send this back to the drawing board and add the conditions, then clearly that's something you can do. I think Bob alluded to something, and I'd like to highlight the fact that they did go through an application process that's one that's kind of been baked in. We have, the TCHFC has an application guide. So just a suggestion that whether or not it gets addressed here, they did go through the process as they knew it at the time. Clearly something we should consider for the future, but just wanted to let y'all know that.
Yeah, I think concerning my comments, thank you, Judge, for addressing that, knowing that we may have the ability to build that in the future. You know, I think if these guys are at the finish line and they've gone through the regular process, and they're supported by Commissioner Brooks, it's his precinct, then I can certainly understand doing it since it's already here. I mean, I'm not necessarily not supportive of this just because of the reputation. I will say going forward, I would love to have some sort of criteria that we could build in that says, you know, because at the end of the day, it's quality of life for the residents in that community and the surrounding communities. And so we want to make sure that it's adding value to the lives of our citizens and not hurting them or making them live in a vulnerable area. You know what I mean? And so we want to protect
I know
against.
exactly what you mean,
Yeah.
and I don't know what kind of security that they have. I do know that they have a very active homeowners organization that meets with management on a regular basis about the property. They offer a full range of human and social services to the residents, including after-school programs for the kids to help them with their homework and their other educational activities. So it would not surprise me a bit if they do have security on the property.
I'd like to do
It's a
that.
very active, heavily
Yeah.
managed
Well, and
property.
you highlighted an important issue. The surrounding neighborhood and community has suffered from crime problems as well. And so perhaps it's just the bleed over. We just want to make sure that the residents there, especially since it's sponsored by this organization, can be as protected as possible with whatever tools we have. So like I said, going forward, I would love to see if we do have the ability to build in protections for the residents. That'd be great.
And on this particular project, there will be an additional mechanism by which you could implement some of these concerns or criteria, and that is through an ERA2 award that the Commissioners Court has already approved. That is an ongoing project. That's an actual funding supplement to this project that was approved about a year ago. And that would be a pretty easy update to make as far as those qualifications and criteria, because that's a conversation that's still going because the project hasn't closed yet. I think that's an avenue that we could use to address some of these issues outside of the bond issuance.
And then maybe what we'll do is we'll just have some homework assignments to gather the data and
Yep.
figure out if it is out of step with.
I would prefer that if we're going to ask them to do some things for security purposes for the residents, that we not try to tell them specifically what they must do. Let's express our concerns and meet with the management and try to work out a program that works rather than telling them, you must do this, you must do that, you must do the other thing.
I don't care how they skin that cat, the cat just has to get skinned.
Yeah.
Why doesn't our staff go gather for before our next Commissioners Court meeting the crime statistics and gather up whatever intel, data, details you can regarding crime over in this area, and we can take a look at it at our next Commissioner Court meeting and consider whether or not we're going to take action with the previously approved thing on continuing funding.
Commissioner Brooks, that's purpose-built communities initiative.
Purpose-built communities, yes. Thank you, James.
Well, for this item, I'd move for approval.
Is there a
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution for Renaissance Square 3 apartments. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Yes.
Can I say something about this project?
Yes. Are you with Renaissance
No,
Square?
sir. I'm Charlie Price with your Development Corporation of Tarrant County.
Yes.
And I was asked to be on the ad hoc committee to deal with this transaction by Donna Van Ness from Housing Channels, your other Chodo here in town. And we have some serious concerns about this project. It's got $8.5 million worth of federal subsidy involved with it, plus these bonds. $8.5 million, guys, in a housing project. That's the most ever Tarrant County or City of Fort Worth has ever put into a project. And they're telling us that they need to do 25 permanent supportive housing units. That means chronically homeless individuals, mainly men, to be living out there, which is concerning for that neighborhood. The neighborhood wasn't told there was supposed to be 25 permanent supportive housing units out there. I was on this committee until they told me that they weren't worried about the transaction. They just worried about the social service provider. And I told them, I said, well, Salvation Army's a great deal, a great group to work with. And I said, they're fine people, but the deal itself smells a little rotten from my perspective as a housing professional of 38 years. $8.5 million worth of subsidy. And the reason they told us they wanted this many permanent supportive housing units, they can charge more rent for those. And remember, that's 25 units out of 100. And purpose-built communities, their average permanent supportive housing unit is 5%. So myself and Donna Van Ness at the Housing Channels are very concerned about this project. And as you know, I think Commissioner Ramirez understands that I'm very concerned about security. Our properties that we own through you guys, Tarrant County Housing Finance Corporation, we put flock cameras up. We've reduced our calls for service. I mean, it works, and we know how to do that. But
Can you tell me what y'all have done? You put cameras up, and what else have you done?
the flock cameras were our biggest concern, and we've been able to fight crime, and we've been able to fight who belongs there. Because most of the time, the crime is committed by someone coming from outside the community, coming into our neighborhoods.
Can you explain how you do that with cameras?
Cameras, we are actually hooked up to
Be a little more specific than just
Yes, sir.
cameras. Yeah.
Yeah, the cameras actually read the license plates, and then we know if there's someone that should be there or not be there, and we know about that at that point.
And then what do you do?
Well, usually we call the police, and we try to deal with it to that point of view. So calls for service, we're in
Who
the...
is monitoring that? Like, how is
the
that
actual,
monitored?
it's the City of Fort Worth Command Center. They have a contract with the Sampson Park, the town of Sampson Park, to do that for them.
But if they're in Fort Worth proper, the flock camera system
Yep.
feeds directly into the region, the real-time crime center, so officers are watching it real time
Okay.
on all of those cameras.
Gotcha.
If you have, I mean,
So if they
there's-
pull up, if they see a license plate and it's, oh, there's a warrant out for this guy's arrest or whatever, they then send, dispatch
or
somebody
if there's
there.
a 911 call and it comes in a certain proximity, then it automatically direct feeds to this crime center, and a police officer's actually watching it on the screen. You know, so they can zone in immediately. So flock cameras are incredible. They're all-
Do you have knowledge that this project, phases 1 and 2, do not have that?
I do not have that knowledge.
Okay.
I was more worried about the financial structure and the $8.5 million. I was just aghast at that and very concerned about it. And I brought our concerns up, and basically they told us, doesn't matter, Columbia's going to do what they want to do. So that was that.
Who structured who structured the financial deal? The county and, was it Hillwood? Hilltop.
You know, the transaction
That's
is
the
put together
8.5 you're
and
talking about?
reviewed financially by Citibank, who's really going to be the lender of the project. So you all issue the bonds, you take the money and make a loan to the borrower pays it back. Your repayment of the loan is based on the borrower's payment back, but really the funding for construction of the project is going to come from Citibank. And they go through and do their own financial analysis on these things.
Okay, but your concern was how this deal was structured, correct?
Yes, the structure of the deal, I don't know how to say it.
Is it the county and who?
The county and the city of Fort Worth.
Thank you.
You basically have given the money to the city of Fort Worth to
Thank you.
provide the subsidy.
You're saying we've shifted our allocation of federal funds to the city of Fort Worth, who in turn offered this on this project.
That's correct.
Okay, so the city of Fort Worth is the one that did this.
Yes.
Okay, and your concern is that it's a finite pool of dollars and it could have gone elsewhere?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know what that's about.
How old is this project? What,
Oh, a decade?
Phase 1 is probably 8 to 10 years old
Yeah, it's a
by
decade.
now.
They built that Walmart a decade ago.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So just for clarification purposes, the issue that you are bringing up is it seems like a whole lot of public dollars going to a project. Is that basically the gist of your issue?
That's the gist of the issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let me just say that affordable housing is not a market rate proposition. It does not work without substantial subsidies from some place. Those subsidies often come from HUD. They are often not block grants, but rather housing vouchers and Section 8 certificates that are what they call project-based. They belong to that particular project and are a dependable portion of the revenue stream. That helps make the numbers work so that the rents can be kept down in the affordable range. That's how these projects work. That's how they survive. This corporation exists to support the building of affordable housing. And we should not be concerned about whether other entities are helping us do that work. We have a motion.
But for, if, and I'm not saying, we now have evidence before us that, oh gosh, we have to deny on the finances, but we don't want public dollars to go to corporations that are raking it in and making enormous profits because they've been able to figure out how to game the system and get more dollars out of each different entity. I'm not saying we have evidence of that here. I do believe we have a responsibility and the power, if you will, to make sure that these are the safest things possible.
I agree.
And if there are ways to put things in place that make things safer, you can put in those conditions, whether it's part of your application process or not. So if we wanted to make a motion that, I know the motion already made, but if you want to make a motion, move to approve, but they must subscribe to the, what's it called? System, the camera thing?
Flock camera.
You must subscribe to the camera. There is nothing in the world that would stop us from doing that. And I guess my question for our board is, why wouldn't we do that? What would be the problem with that?
I don't have a problem with them having those cameras. The issue for the nonprofit developer is probably one of cost. They have costed out their project, and they have submitted those costs to the TDHCA, Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, and gotten an allocation of funds based upon those costs. I don't know how much this camera system costs, but if
No,
it's a budget buster.
It's nominal, and I think that perhaps it can be built in if we're requiring something in our follow-on phases for county participation that Kristen was talking about.
Yeah.
We can build in that requirement. I will go back a little bit to the concerns from Charlie about efficiently spending those dollars. I think it's entirely within our power to make sure that those projects are the safest and most efficient as they happen. And so if we're just granting our dollars to the city of Fort Worth, I remember when we were going through the ARPA process, they were working with a developer that was not nonprofit. And that developer had ownership in a project that our funds were going towards. And I had an issue with a private entity having ownership in that. Because again, even if they say we're just going to continue to reinvest, they can still borrow against it. It goes in their balance sheet. I mean, there's all this other, it's public dollars, whether it's funneled through us by the feds or not, it's still public dollars. So that's my concern, is maybe in the future, we got to be a little bit more vigilant, even with our partnerships with our cities, to make sure that we're exerting more control over that. And not just blindly jumping into an agreement with the city.
So, humor me here for a minute. If we said we are going to continue to participate in whatever funding program Kristen is describing that we authorized a year ago, would that have the same weight and power if we required that here in 2 weeks? If we voted to make them subscribe to this system and install cameras at all 3 locations for continued participation in whatever this grant program is, would that have the same weight and effect of doing it here now? In other words, I hate to use the phrase, but can we wield the power that way just as effectively as we wield it right here for this?
I mean, I think it's fair to say that they need the sources of funds regardless of whether they're coming from, whether it's coming
Yeah.
from the bond issuance or whether it's coming through the other program.
And we may find out when you gather stats and information that it's overblown, there's not a big problem, but if there's a way to make sure we are keeping people safer and before we release it and we're out of it, I think we ought to take a long, hard look at it.
That during the December 3rd court meeting, there will be an opportunity for the Commissioners Court to address this issue.
Okay.
And I'll go out over my skis and get out of my wheelhouse a little bit. I prefer that avenue because it keeps the expectations that we provided, which again, to your point, we can change those, but I like keeping the expectations that we provided for the bond issuance intact and not having moved the goalpost a little, as it were, at the end, if we can accomplish it through another avenue.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah, for this project.
Okay. I'm done.
We have a motion on the floor to approve the resolution. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. The motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 6, resolution with regarding Wildwood Branch.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, this project is a rehabilitation project. They've got 280 units. It's located at 6225 Shady Oaks Manor Drive in Fort Worth. The project is going to be cash collateralized, underwritten by Stiefel Nicholas to start with. They're going to have, Charlie's group is the sole member of the general partnership that's part of this project as well. In the audience is Brad Fisher, who works for the development group. He's appeared before you before. Here's this, but this is a project that is at the stage also of getting the final bond authorization or sale, and they'll go forward and price the bond should the corporation proceed with approval of this project. So it's going to end up at the end of the day having Freddie Mac be the long-term lender of this project. So it's gone through a kind of a construction phase, and then the permanent phase will be ultimately funded by Freddie Mac. But it's the process that you induced some time ago. They've been in the project, and their volume allocation expires the end of January of 2025. So it's the thought process that needs to go on from that point of view if you're so inclined. $38,100,000 was the amount of volume allocation that was reserved for this project. Again, I suspect that the actual dollar amount will be a little bit less than that, maybe in the $35 million range.
So, Mr. Dransfield, are you saying that the bonds that we are being asked to issue will be to cover the construction costs of these bonds, and that at some point there will be a takeout from Freddie Mac?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And during the period of construction, the bonds themselves will be 100% cash collateralized by either unexpended bond proceeds or money that gets deposited into a collateral account. They can only take money out of the bond proceeds fund to pay the project costs when a like amount of dollars comes into the collateral fund.
Okay, this one is preservation of existing housing stock. That's always been a priority for me. To improve something that's already there and make it livable, extend the life of that project. Any discussion of this resolution?
Same question on security concerns. I mean, I think, are we at that point? Do we have another, perhaps we have somebody who could speak to the security on this property?
The developer owner is here, so.
Brad Fisher with April Housing. We're actually actively looking at putting the flock system in for Wildwood, so that we're not quite to closing yet, so we'll work that budget and make sure we have them on site.
Okay.
So that's seems like to be a great system, so we'd like to have that property.
Do y'all have on-site security?
I think there are some patrols, but we'll look at that too to see what else we can do. But definitely the camera system.
Okay.
We need a motion on this, right?
Please.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the resolution for, what is the name of this project?
Wildwood
Said
Branch.
Wildwood Branch? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. And finally, item number 7, resolution regarding the submission of applications for allocation of private activity bonds. This is the first step in our process. It's the inducement resolution process, not the actual issuance of bonds.
That's correct, Mr. President, and this is another project that Mr. Fisher's involved with, so he's here to answer any questions about this, but this is the very first step of these projects, and this will be a 2025 volume allocation request. It's located with 2 properties, one at 5201 James Avenue in Fort Worth, and the other one at 308 East Terrell Avenue in Fort Worth. The combined total for those 2 would be a $40 million request. They'll go through and actually end up getting 2 separate volume allocation reservations because the properties are a little bit of distance. So as a result of that, this action to authorize the submission of the applications to the Bond Review Board is kind of what's taking place here. But at the end of the day, when it comes time to issue the debt, we'll have to have those as separate financings, if you will, and keep track of them at least in separate dollars, different columns for each of the projects to not go above that. But the collective amount is not to exceed $40 million, again, at this very preliminary stage. And I'm sure Mr. Fisher will be happy to answer questions you might have about this property.
The first property is on James Avenue. The second one is where?
East Terrell,
East
Terrell Avenue.
Terrell with a T?
T is T-E-R-R-E-L-L. But,
Where on East Terrell?
well, all I can tell you is 308. I haven't done the Google Maps yet.
Right on the line of your precinct and Commissioner Ramirez precinct. Just right on.
So it's west of 35.
Just.
Okay.
So since this is an inducement resolution,
Correct.
basically at the starting line, can we build in some requirements or expectation that for the follow-on application for the resolution of approval, that, and I don't even know what specifics to require, but best practice, whatever we study and decide we want as security criteria, maybe it's as simple as block camera systems plus added security or whatever, but can we build that stuff in after approving this, or do we need to build it into this?
You can do it after approving this, first of all, because this is just a very preliminary step in nature. The other thing I would suggest to you, because Mr. Fisher is here listening to this discussion, and these are his properties, he'll have a pretty good sense as to what needs to happen.
Yeah.
But we can coordinate and make sure that we have interacted with these developers on this project as well as going forward on other projects to make sure that those things are addressed to the way you all want them. So if there are criteria in particular that you think are appropriate, you can do that. We can also think about modifying the application process on a going forward basis. So if you want to highlight those things for people that are coming into your corporation with new projects, we can do the same thing.
I will ask, have we collaborated with the city of Fort Worth? These are both within the city of Fort Worth proper, correct? And they're-
Yes.
Okay. Have we collaborated with Fort Worth and kind of figured out if this is what they have as a vision for the area? If this is on their MTP as multifamily housing, or otherwise? We don't like it when HFCs from Galveston County or the like come in and issue bonds for properties in Tarrant County without us knowing about it. Have we gone through the process with Fort Worth and said, do you want us to do this?
We have not, because that's not anything we've been doing in the past.
I just know from experience now, recent experience from having an outside HFC come build in Tarrant County, that I don't want to be a bad actor or a bad partner if Fort Worth doesn't want this.
Brad Fisher with April again. We have to go through a process with TDHCA, which requires us to get a resolution of no objection. So we'll have to go, there's an application we submit to the city of Fort Worth. It all starts kind of now with this inducement.
Got it.
So we've done that on the other 2, on Wildwood, we've done it on Meridian, and we'll do it on this one too.
And maybe that's where, since it's in the city of Fort Worth, it'll be their police departments responding. maybe that's where they can demand some of the things that we're asking for as far as safety
I'm sure
measures.
we can reach out and see if they have any suggestions or
Yeah.
what their current plan is.
I'm
Happy
sure
to
they
do
will.
that.
Kristen, if, I don't care if the thing I asked for earlier is December 3rd or 17th, to be perfectly honest, but if it's not going to be the 3rd, I want you to let my office know. And then in addition to that, I would like to see the staff do some research on what are the top 3 to 5 things that apartment complexes do to enhance security and safety, or the top 10, I don't know what it is. I would recommend looking at it, talking to people who own complexes or manage complexes, and I would recommend talking to the police. And then yes, in January, while I'm now throwing out things, I would like to see us revise our application to require those things before any approvals.
Okay.
Was there a motion? Are we done? Did we process?
May I have a motion with regard to this resolution?
Move approval.
Second?
Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Item number 8, consideration of the addition of investment officer and/or designee as an authorized administrator for bank accounts. Yes, ma'am. Madam
Yes,
Auditor.
yes, sir. Thank you. We would like for you guys to consider adding the investment officer to the bank accounts. I think one thing that Kristen and I discovered along the way is a lot of the CDs were just being allowed to renew, and so there was no dialogue happening and evaluation happening. And so this will allow us to work together and have a backup in place for that. We do have a number of bank accounts with CDs. That's something else that I'll be looking at and maybe coming to you guys in January with some suggestions after meeting with the investment committee. So that's where that's coming from. And one of the other things that I wanted to just kind of bring for your consideration is the Chase bank account. Just recently, Kristen and I worked with Chase to make that an interest-bearing account. One of the things is it's just your routine account. We have no online access. They do have the ability, it's a product called Chase Connect. It's not as robust as the one that we currently use for the depository, but it would allow some online access so that we can view transactions, implement fraud protections, but it does come with a fee. It's $300 a month.
Is that even before us today to address?
It's part of this consideration. I wanted just to bring that to your attention. We can talk about it next time, if y'all want to pursue that.
Well, I'm not trying to cut off discussion. I just don't know that we can sit here without it being posted and approved changing to Chase Bank. We can sit here and approve the addition of the investment officer, which I
Okay.
will move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
All right, and then the next item is the investment.
wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We've got a motion and a second to improve adding and you are the investment
Yes, sir.
officer for this corporation.
Yes.
Right. Right. Adding the investment officer to the CDs. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
Move to approve the next one, which we've already approved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 10, discussion of possible action related to HFC partnership with the City of Grand Prairie. Commissioner Simmons.
Yes. So what you see before you is a partnership, potential partnership at providing what is called attainable housing it's commonly referred to as affordable housing. But these 8 lots that we're looking at in Grand Prairie would be for attainable housing for folks like teachers, nurses, police officers, firefighters, and other financially qualified first-time home buyers. We think it's a great opportunity for the county to assist the city in benefiting our shared constituents over in Precinct 2. Increased tax revenue can be expected for all taxing entities, Grand Prairie, Tarrant County, the Community College, JPS, Grand Prairie ISD. The 2024 land is valued at $60,000 according to TAD. And new taxation will be against land plus improvements. So this project allows us to adhere to the goal or the focus of this Housing Finance Corporation, and it was established in order to provide decent, safe, sanitary, and affordable housing. So its primary function is to issue single-family and multifamily bonds for financing of reasonably priced homes. So I move approval.
So are we 100% positive that all of these lots are in Tarrant County? So they're not one in Dallas County?
Yes, we're 100. I've walked the each.
That's a quick yes or no. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
I've walked each
Then
of the lots.
I don't think we don't have anything on this agenda that allows us to go into closed session that I can see. So I have never before seen on any agenda in any government entity discussing the purchase of land in an open session. So it's not possible to sit here and discuss in a responsible way to our taxpayers and who we're serving what we're willing to pay, what the price is per square foot of typical lots. I don't know why we did it this way. This is not the way to do it. The way to do it is to take that into executive session, ask questions, not put it on the agenda. Here it is, first time you've ever seen it, go buy it for $525,000. This is not the way to go about it.
Or you're our counsel. Does this violate statute or what?
I don't think it violates any laws. It's just not a prudent way to do it.
Well, technically, housing finance corporations are not subject to the open meetings law, but you all have functioned that way really since the start. And so from that perspective, you've got some flexibility should you want to exercise that flexibility. And that's a policy decision that ultimately you all will determine whether you want to or not. Some conduit corporations, like industrial development corporations and others, are very clearly subject to the open meetings law. This one just doesn't happen to be.
It's not.
My understanding is today was to be a briefing, and with possible action to bring back for the city or someone to bring something back, a formal request in the following meeting.
That was, no.
Okay.
Well,
That
who
was
prepared the
not
agenda?
understanding. Yes.
Well, when it says discussion and possible action,
Right.
and that's,
Take action to bring back a.
No, that was not my understanding.
That's my mistake.
does the city of Grand Prairie have a housing finance corporation?
Yes.
Why isn't the city of Grand Prairie buying it?
Come on up.
Walter Schumacher, City of Grand Prairie, Managing Director. City of Grand Prairie, typically for most of, if not all of our projects, we love working with stakeholders, partners. We see this as an opportunity for all of us to share and produce something that we think the citizens will be very excited about, as well as getting the best value for the money. So when we look at this opportunity, it seemed like a good opportunity for all of us to have stakeholders in it. And
How much is the city of Grand Prairie putting into it?
the final funding is not totally set because it's going to be very flexible with all the city's going to do. We're purchasing the land. We have a willing buyer right here. Poly America is the current property owner. So We're going to be flexible because basically we're going to be kind of the general contractor on this as far as getting first we got to get the property ready, then we got to go vertical, and we're going to be handling the delta of that cost. So I don't have a final number for you because that number is going to be flexible.
So you're the managing director of the HFC?
No, sir. I'm the managing director of the city manager's office.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is the HFC participating in this? The Grand Prairie HFC?
Yes, sir.
At what level?
I don't know exactly the answer to that.
Well, if the cost of the land, or the value proposed here in this document is $525,000, it appears that we're paying 100% of the cost of the land. So what would the Grand Prairie HFC be doing if the city is going to manage being the general contractor building these homes, a city building homes? What is the HFC going to do?
We're going to be managing the project at the same time. We also look at all the cost, everything associated with the construction.
So
Is
who's
the HSC going to issue bonds to cover the construction cost?
No, sir.
So you're going to have private developers build these homes?
We also are getting federal funding involved to handle the construction also. So we do have funds coming in to help with the funding of it.
So federal funding, I'm just trying to think about, I'm not, for the record, I've not been briefed on this either. I have no idea what this is. I'm trying to figure it out now. Federal funding, walk me through how this works. We buy the land. We, I guess, donate the land to the Grand Prairie HFC or the city of Grand Prairie. They then get additional federal funding to either construct the homes themselves or hire a general contractor, or a private developer comes in and buys the project that has already had our $500,000 or our $525,000 and the federal funding as a subsidy, and that's how they can sell these things. But then they go back on the tax rolls at what rate once they're sold?
What I would add to that is that the city works with the Chodos to actually do the construction of it, which works with our housing department to get that done. Once it goes back on the tax rolls, whatever that delta is, we put that back in order to help the folks that are buying the homes bring that mortgage payment down, so it does become attainable. So I think that answers part of your question.
So the city holds the contracts on the land, and the city will also fund the architectural design, the platting, zoning, infrastructure development, and construction management after the purchase of the land.
What is funding zoning?
Any zoning that has to be done to make sure any zoning that has to be done, any permitting that will have to be done, will all be handled by the city.
So how does the city fund its own zoning change? You cut a check to yourself?
Basically, yes, sir.
So so we talked about, I mean, all these bond issuances and then loaning our bonds down to Austin to collaborate and have bigger impact on homeownership for these projects. That's one thing, and there's always an upside for the HFC to continue this work. Is there a return on the $525,000 that we contribute? Is there an expected return, or is this just a donation?
The return is whatever that cost is goes back into the project itself in order to help the citizens, whoever's buying the home, be able to buy it at that attainable rate.
Yeah, I got that.
So,
I'm just not sure, how this is articulated, it's as if it's some sort of investment. That's what I'm saying. Is there a return on the 525, or is it quite literally us just contributing 525 to build affordable housing? How do you articulate?
You are contributing.
The tax valuation, the return?
That's correct.
Okay.
Typically, when we do a deal as the Tarrant County Housing Finance Corporation, we issue bonds, we issue debt instruments to raise the funds that we're going to use in the project. This particular deal, if you will, would require us to use our principal to fund this deal.
Have we ever done this before?
I don't believe so. Mr. Dransfield?
The only thing that even comes halfway remote is over the years, you all have given grants to diverse and sundry people, recipients, that are kind of housing related, but I don't know that I've heard of this kind of discussion in anything prior.
Yeah,
to
those
this.
are grants to direct applicants that we're trying to help. Yeah,
Correct.
just like the
Yeah.
program we discussed a couple of months ago, where it's the mortgage program.
Right.
We contribute funds to that. So, I mean, and I love that. I mean, getting homeowners. This is giving dollars to another government agency or HFC to manage, to buy. I'm confused by this.
So, let me ask, is it much different than what we do with roads and bridges? I mean, we give money to our partner cities and they manage projects.
Our roads and bridges are built from a dedicated fund that is built from, in part, the license plates. A portion of that goes into our road and bridge funds, and that's what we use to do roads and bridges, unless we do a bond issue, which we've done twice, 2 transportation bond programs to fund roads.
And this fund is
But our
dedicated to
county
housing.
roads-
Yeah.
Our county roads are done out of the road and bridge fund.
Right.
This is kind of a slippery slope. I think if we buy land in a city for $525,000, we're gonna have every city, every municipality in Tarrant County coming to this Housing Finance Corp asking us to do the exact same thing. How do we tell them no if we do it once?
Again, just like we do with roads and bridges, we have every school district that needs a parking lot and everybody coming to us for everything. I think we bring it to this body and the body makes the decisions. But this is a win-win. Again, tax valuations will make money once these folks become taxpayers.
How will we make
And
money?
then,
But if the Chodos are building them, aren't they gonna be
They
tax
pay
incentivized? Like, won't they have tax credits?
I mean, the amount of taxes that the county will recoup from these homes, you won't get to $565,000 in recoupment as long as the 4 of us are alive.
And again, this would be fulfilling the mission of this Housing Finance Corporation. It's attainable housing.
Well, right
within
now,
our county.
these lots are privately owned, right? So they're privately owned. They're not owned by any government agency.
That's correct.
Okay, so they're privately owned. Why doesn't a private developer just go try to partner with the Grand Prairie HFC to do this? And,
I can't give you a good answer to that. I don't know.
yeah. I don't know.
Now, I will
This-
say this, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Sorry. This was an opportunity that I was seeking. I'm looking for affordable housing opportunities throughout my precinct. There is such a need, and I have worked with each mayor and city manager to ask them to help us identify, and I've been asked by cities to partner on affordable housing, attainable housing projects throughout the precinct. And so, in an effort to be a good partner, this is a mission of this county. That's what I'm doing what I was elected to do.
Additionally, Commissioner, what I will say is that, like I said, these are privately owned, and we have a partner in this, and that when this came up, they said, okay, we're willing to work with you on this. the property owner.
I'm sure they are, because we're buying it at market value.
All right.
Is there any further discussion on this item? Is there a motion?
I made a motion, did not get a second.
I'll second the motion for the sake of having a vote on the issue. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Nope.
2 to 2, it does not pass. Are there any members of the public who wish to address this body? Announcements and comments. The next meeting of the Housing Finance Corporation will be January 16th at 10 a.m. I would assume that at that time there will be an election of new officers, since I will no longer be a part of this corporation.
Boo.
Can we bring you back as emeritus?
That doesn't come with a vote, so that's not worth a bucket of warm spit.
If you get into the development business, you know where to find us.
I've been in the development business, and I have built and managed low-income housing all over the Southwest. That was my life before I came to county government.
Perfect president.
If there is no further business to be considered by this body, we typically don't adjourn by motion, but what the hell?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned.